What's up, everybody? Welcome back to our channel. This is T.
My name is Kareem.
And you are watching This Deluxe Life TV. We are here to talk about Married at First Sight, Season 14, Episode 15. And in this episode, we see people visiting their origin stories, as well as writing letters to their former selves. And they get a visit from experts, too. And I'm saying origin stories because it used to be hometown visits, but everybody is not from Boston, so they not flying nobody nowhere. Like they didn't, try to do that. But also they didn't make any effort to try to get people into like their actual former homes or anything. It was just kind of like, this is the street,
Yeah, I think only a couple of them actually still, only a couple of them actually still had access to the homes because they still lived there. Actually, it was only one, right? It was,
Noy and Steve.
Steve's family, they still own the home. And it makes sense. I mean, you're talking about, people move away and stuff like that.
I mean, I do think that's true, but I think they could have did better than we're going to go to a park. You know what I mean? Like Lindsay did the whole nature path thing. Noy did a dance class. You know what I mean? Like, I felt like they could have did better than they did.
But I guess they did the best they could do with what they had, though.
It's a whole TV show. It's not the best they can do.
Because Noy is not from Boston, right? Like, she's recently moved in. So, like you said before, they're not going to be flying people all over the world.
Right, and that's my point. It's not the best they can do, though. I feel like if that's what the episode is set up to be.
I mean, you watch so many daggone commercials, you think they had the money to do that.
They do. They try to keep all that money for themselves.
Goodness gracious.
So anyway, as you all know from our previous recaps, we don't go point by point through the episodes. Most of you has already watched the episodes, and there are plenty of other channels that do that. We kind of want to touch on the bigger themes that we see and the bigger, issues, topics for each couple. So, but before we jump into that, I would like Kareem to tell you about his channel.
My channel is All The Way Live Media. You can come on over, check out my cool content from sports to video games and etc. It's a good time.
It is a good time. So let's jump into it. Do you want to start with who? You want to start with Noy and Steve, maybe?
I guess we could start with Noy and Steve.
Okay. So I felt like the biggest thing that we learned from Noy and Steve is that Steve used to be a local hip hop star. Also, he's got the move like Jagger.
That part was impressive. So, I guess it's just me, growing up in hip hop culture. I don't like everything, but I can't really say it was good or was bad for other people. But Steve had some bars. Back in the day, he was a rapper. His homie made beats. I'm not that surprised because of how much trash he talk.
I'm not surprised at all, honestly. Steve seems like a very multi-layered, multifaceted person. Okay, so he was into music, he was into dance, he was into sports, He may be a secret millionaire,
Well, I think it's dope how, he had that. They had like a hit single, like they was like hood famous. You know what I'm saying?
Except for it was neighborhood famous.
So within a 1 square mile radius, 6 blocks this way, 6 blocks that way, whatever. Like Steve was famous, but you know what? Sometimes that's good enough. That's good enough to boost a young person's ego and help them along in life. So that's what's up. I mean, they played the song. Obviously, not gonna go into many details what I thought about that, props to Steve. But then they did the whole they did the whole dance routine, and Steve was basically eating Noy up.
Truly, because Noy was like, dance was my way of self-expression when I couldn't get my emotions out. I wasn't allowed to express my emotions, so I expressed them through dance. And I was just like, well, Steve is letting you know that you still need some growing to do communication in the dance area too.
Yeah.
But that was like kind of like her origin story, and we did get to learn a little more about like why she comes across the way that she does. And
she let that out a little bit more, like essentially saying, you know, she needs to hold on to who she is when she talked about how she fights him over certain things, particularly the social media content. You know, it's not her being disrespectful or neglecting him. It's really just her trying to hold on. So she's essentially choosing to be assertive in that regard.
But not assertive in other regards. So like the point that she, you know, was making with the whole, you know, expression piece was that in her home, you know, self-expression about your thoughts, feelings, emotions, things like that was frowned upon. And so she's uncomfortable and not used to talking about things when something bothers her or makes her sad or makes her fearful or angry. She's not used to vocalizing those things. And so she's become I can show you better than I can tell you type of person, because showing was all that she had to do. And so she's still trying to figure out how to get the telling part done in a healthy and appropriate way.
Yeah, she's definitely not a great communicator.
No.
And Steve is a great communicator, even though, you know, we don't always like what Steve says.
Some of the things he says is super silly, but at least he can get it out in a healthy and respectful way.
Yeah,
even though, like, I'm just like, that's whack though, Steve.
Yeah, that whole last week or 2 weeks ago, I've been trying to have this conversation for weeks.
Truly,
like,
because if you want me to work, I won't have the creative energy to think about our future. It's like, well, thank you for putting those words together in a sentence. Nevertheless, those words are whack.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, I do feel like if they stay together, and they probably won't or shouldn't, in my opinion, but if they stay together, perhaps the better communication is something that she can learn from Steve.
So they did have some more conversation about what might happen after decision day, and Dr. Pepper said that she lives apart from her spouse. Which is really hard for me to fathom, but it works for them. She says she's been married to this person for 17 years.
16 years.
16 years. And before that, she was married for over 20 years.
23.
To a person with whom she's obviously divorced. But she did cohabitate because they had kids. But it's kind of hard, but it's actually more difficult to see such a seemingly modern philosophy of marriage come from a person who themselves is a little advanced in age. But I mean, if it works for them, you know, props to them. That don't mean, you know, Steve got to just be like, oh, well, you know, it works for Dr. Pepper, then I want it.
Right.
It doesn't mean that, but it is a sign that those marriages can work if both parties are amenable to that particular, you know, method.
Right. I did get the sense that, you know, Dr. Pepper and Noy seemed to be on the same page for a minute there. And Steve was just kind of looking like, but wait, I don't agree with that, though, you know, but they didn't show him vocalizing that.
No, he just kind of nervous laughter through it.
Right. And the other thing, you know, to consider in all of this is, you know, Dr. Pepper did concede that when she was in a marriage in which they were child rearing, they did live together. And it seems like Dr. Pepper was saying that does seem to be the appropriate, you know, situation for that, because what are you going to be doing? Shuttling kids between households, and you know what I mean? It's like custody and visitation at that point, which I would imagine that neither of them wants. And so does that mean that you're talking about living apart for a very short term until you're ready to start having kids? Because both of them are saying, you know, oh, within a year is fine. You know, so how are you going to be having kids within a year if you're living apart. Like that part doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So, and Steve had even offered, if she needs to hold on to her apartment for a period of time to like honor her independence and, just kind of like come to terms with all of the changes, that he would be amenable to that. But it doesn't seem like anything that he's hoping or expecting would be a long-term, solution. Like, oh, okay, we doing this and like, this is how we're going to live. And I think it's ironic too, because he seems to need a plan for how that's going to work out. And Noi needs a plan for how his lack of work is going to work out. And neither of them are giving each other what they need in terms of what it would take for them to say yes on decision day.
But as you can see, I think some of that conversation, whatever that conversation was that they had a couple of weeks ago about money, has somewhat satiated Noi. Because she hasn't talked about it since.
Somewhat, but she has thrown, inklings out there. Like the conversation that they had with money was before the last episode. That was 2 episodes ago. Last episode, we saw them at the table with Michael and Jasmina talking about, we still have some things to work out in that area. I mean, at least they're having the conversation, but it definitely is not like a settled conversation by any means. So that seems to be like where they are right now. Everybody, I feel like, kind of ended the episode exactly where they began it. You know what I mean? Like there was no major moves, shifts, light bulb moments, for any of those things. The only thing that we did hear Steve was acknowledging, okay, now I understand after hearing Noi's letter to her younger self why she needs more security. But like this has literally been told to you since episode 1, 2, and 3. Why is it just now, resonating? Oh, okay, she needs more security because of how she grew up.
Yeah, it's possible that it already has. He's just, admitting it now.
Right.
Because it always made sense, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
But, yeah.
So that's Steve and Noi.
We'll move on to maybe Michael and Jasmina.
Sure. So with Michael and Jasmina, I do still feel like it's nice to see their continued open communication. It's nice to see them getting along. It's nice to see them being jokey and, things like that with each other. I also, though, feel like this relationship is probably doomed.
It's doomed. And it's funny because every single thing that Jasmina does, like every time Jasmina talks, particularly when she talks about Michael, of course, since that's the focus of the show, it's almost like there's always this tinge of, yeah, but I still don't like you though.
Yes.
like it's always just, it's great to see Michael opening up to me. He's being more vulnerable. We're spending time together, yeah, but I still don't like him.
You.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's the period to every one of those sentences. And like like you can't make someone love you. Michael is trying. If I'm Michael, I would have given up by now, because obviously it's not like a Pepe Le Pew thing where he's just harassing her. He's really just being as nice as he can, as thoughtful as he can be, and she's being as receptive of it, but whatever it is that he's offering is not what she's looking for.
Yeah.
Is not, and he just don't got it. And Michael, I don't think they obviously don't love each other. I like in a romantic way. They're not emotionally bonded. I think that's clear even on Michael's behalf. I don't think he loves her like that. I think he wants to.
I think he could easily go there.
He wants that.
If she came towards him, then he would be all in. He
wants that, and he's not getting that. But he's probably just going to keep trying till the final day, to the midnight hour, and and you already know. Like I would be shocked if Jasmina wants to stay. I wouldn't be all that shocked if Michael is just like, yeah, I want to stay. But I would be floored if Jasmina is like.
That would be like Mirla saying yes, like last season with Mirla and Gil. you know,
the fireman and the
yes.
like business.
Yes, the educational
woman.
professional.
Oh, so that's what she was. That's the one that shopped a lot, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But but when she said yes on decision day, that was very surprising to me. And so, but I think we did learn a couple of things about Jasmina in this episode. The first is, and no surprise to anyone, she does seem to be very closed off, reserved, particularly when it comes to Michael. But I think we learned some of the things about potentially why that is happening. And it goes back to what she shared in her letter to her former self about, home not being a safe space for her. And so we know that her biological parents split when she was presumably very young. And so even in her letter to her former self, she didn't talk about really the impact that her biological mother had on her life. And I imagine it's because she didn't have much of an impact at all, having left so young. And maybe the only impact that she had was trauma, so no need to state it. But she did talk quite a bit about her first stepmother's impact on her life. And when, they talked about Jasmine in the beginning and a little bit about her story, I didn't even know that there was a first stepmother.
Yeah.
And, so it was like that part was really surprising. Yeah. And so when she's talking about her first stepmother and saying she never loved her, she never hugged her, she never touched her, it's like these are the things that are happening in her formative years. Like they flashed a picture of Jasmina and she appeared like very young. And so, this is the time when you're learning what healthy attachment looks like, when you're trying to figure out what man-woman relationships or any type of healthy, romantic relationship looks like. And it looks like she's never seen that. And going back to something that I mentioned the last episode is Jasmina talked about her, her longest relationship having been a long distance relationship. And so that's not even a relationship where she had to even be in that person's presence on a regular basis. And so of course it's easy to put your best foot forward when, you visiting, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so you have her in the situation where I feel like she doesn't know how to be open
and share space with
exactly. And the part that is really disappointing is because it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. You see Jasmina saying in the very beginning of all of these episodes, she feels like she's been the person that men have to go through in order to be right for the next woman. And you see this actually happening. Yeah. Like, Michael is becoming more open and more introspective and more vulnerable, even though I hate that word now because of this show, because everyone's vulnerable, you know what I mean? But it's like, can we cancel vulnerable? Truly. So, it's like, okay, so you see Michael opening up himself to Jasmina in the ways that she says that she needs, and she doesn't know how to receive it. And therefore, that relationship's going to end, whether because she chooses for it to end or whether because he chooses for it to end because he can't put up with it no more. But somebody is more than likely going to say no on decision day because this is not working. And honestly, at this point, it's Jasmina's fault.
You are absolutely 100% correct. And I never even thought about it like that, because you think, and it can be assumed that when she says something like she's always the woman that other men have had to go through before they found the woman of the love of their life, etc., it could be assumed that somehow it was the dudes messing up, and it might have been. Right. Like it very well might have been at some point. We don't know those situations exactly, but one thing that we do see is that Jasmina can be frigid, and she's not like a cold person in general. She's not an uncompassionate, uncaring person in general. She's not like going out snapping on people every day in public.
Not at all.
But when it comes down to intimacy, and particularly emotional intimacy. Jasmina, she doesn't have it in her. And
I don't know. I wouldn't say she doesn't have it in her, but it's definitely going to take more than these 8 weeks for it to come out.
Well, I mean, that's possible, but she definitely is not her first gear, and you essentially pick up those types of habits of just being intimate, and that's just being personal with somebody, like learn how to share space with another person and so on and so forth. Her longest relationship was a long distance relationship. That is a different type of comfortability, because when you come home every day, you don't come home to that person, even though that person is a part of your life.
Right.
It's a couple of phone calls throughout the day and maybe a couple of road trips or flights throughout the week or month or whatever. But it's not every single day that person's in your face. You get to measure and meter the amount of time that you give to that person.
Right.
Whereas married at first sight, it's like, boom, now y'all married. And now y'all cohabitate. And now, whether you like this person or not, you essentially got to wake up with them every single day.
Right.
And that's different.
Right.
That marriage in general is just different from any type of relationship you ever had. But, as we already said, I'd be dumbfounded if she stayed. I would not so much, but if I'm Michael, I'm like, listen, this may not be worth it. And you'll see again, Jasmina is the woman that Michael had to go through, because remember, Michael wasn't used to opening up.
No.
Michael,
he's grown.
Michael, for those first few weeks, Michael struggled a lot with his effort, with his communication, with being vulnerable, whatever the heck that means. But with being open to another person, Michael was not. Jasmina kind of was able to draw that out of him, but now Jasmina is like, this relationship was able to draw that out of him.
Yeah, and I just want to interject for a second, because, and the reason why I shook my head no, because the experts really, in my opinion, that's the kind of like the one thing they did do right when they met with Dr. Viviana. And she gave them, some exercises to do to help them with that. That's what helped their communication. That's what helped them to learn how to, start to be open with each other. Because not only was Jasmina more on the frigid side, but she also was not a healthy communicator when it comes to disputes. She always put that on Michael, but it really went both ways.
It really went both ways. And we didn't see it at first because we were reeling from pretty much the first disagreement that they had, which was the whole thing about you cut me off.
Yeah.
Because that was so stupid. We thought that every time they had a problem, it was going to be because Michael being stupid.
Right.
But no, like Jasmina, I won't say stupid, but I would say just she flips that switch and she becomes this condescending person. You know what I'm saying? And that can, and see, the thing about condescending people is that they're not always high volume kind of people, but you don't realize that energy that you're putting into your tone can really tick people off.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you could be condescending to somebody and you'll find that they just start snapping on you. You're like, why are you yelling? I'm not yelling. And well, you're not yelling in volume, but you're being very disrespectful in your tone.
Yeah.
So
I mean, because so we did have her, sharing her letter. We did find out that, because of a teacher, Miss Pataski. Shout out to Miss Pataski.
Yeah, I think we all got those teachers out there, especially when we were in elementary school, that really
that knew how to make us feel special.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I have a teacher like that, and I know I'm not like her favorite teacher. I mean, our favorite student ever. But if I was to see that teacher, obviously I have no idea where she is in this world. But if I was to ever see this woman, I'd be like, Miss Pigford, you was my favorite teacher ever. And that's 30-something years ago.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I used to be a teacher back in the day. And it was cool because I got to see a lot of my kids from, the time they was 4 and 5 to, them getting ready to graduate high school. In fact, we just saw one of my former students several months ago when we were preparing to sell our house. He was interviewing to be our realtor, which was, that's really cool, that was dope. But it was like, I'm looking at like these grown people and, whenever they see me, they're like, Miss T, you know what I mean? Like I'm still, somebody that they remember as having an impact in their life. And I'm not saying I'm, anywhere near as wonderful as Miss Pataski. Jasmine, don't come for me. Jasmine, don't come for me. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying. I understand I understand that give and take. I had teachers in my life who made me feel special that also made me want to make other young people feel special.
Yeah.
And so, and I thought that was very insightful of, Michael to kind of like ask those questions. And even though she ended up sharing it anyway in her letter, like he asked the question even before she shared her letter. And I was like, go ahead, Michael, that was really good, because it shows that he's listening and thinking about how is what I'm hearing impacting the person that's standing before me today. And, like what life decisions that they make, what are all of the things, the thoughts, feelings, emotions that they had around this. Let me ask more questions. I thought that was really good. I also felt like Michael shared quite a bit from his experience. I thought his letter was beautiful. And like he was talking about his relationship with his mom and, sharing that, he really does wish that he had like held her closer. And, that kind of like made me tear up a little bit because I was like, oh, I feel you on that, Michael. I think we all need to, hold our loved ones closer.
Yeah, man. Cancer sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's just about it with them. But
one other thing I want to mention. So Michael shared about the circumstances around his brother's death, but he asked Jasmina, was there anything that the psychic said that was particularly, insightful to you? And she was like, yeah, twins in a year and a half. And it's like, ma'am, you don't want to have no twins with this man. You know what I mean?
So you're gonna meet a whole dude
and have twins.
Pretty much and get so basically she's gonna meet a whole dude within the next, couple of weeks. They're gonna date for about 6-7 months. At this, she's gonna get pregnant.
Yeah, I mean, and unless they, which I'm sure they had additional conversations that we did not get to see recorded, but unless the psychic backtracked on some things that she said, because what we heard her say was that there are twins in the future. And so we don't know if that's for Jasmina or Michael and or both of them together. We don't know. But that she also said that Jasmina, if she doesn't choose Michael, would meet somebody in like a year and a half, but would regret that relationship. So when you're saying twins in a year and a half and looking at him and batting your eyelashes, that whole year and a half piece was if you don't choose him. Mm-hmm. And the twins had something to do with y'all or something. Yeah, so like just don't go together.
Running her family,
right?
Twins running his family.
Right.
Well, twins don't. He has a set of triplets in his family. So
yeah, I'm like, Jasmina, girl, come on, you're not into him like that. And I wish she were. I really do. He's a good guy. Yeah. He's trying really hard. He would give her the world.
Because they even met with Dr. Viviana and she reiterated the fact that she's still not feeling it. And at that point, I just was like, yeah, well,
Oh, you mean when they met with Dr. Pepper?
Dr. Pepper, yeah, Dr. Pepper. Because we haven't seen Dr. Viviana that much in the last few weeks.
Yeah, so let's move on from them. Do you want to go on to
Elijah and Katina?
All right, you want to go first?
So they went back to the projects that Elijah Wan grew up with, which don't really look like new projects to me. Probably just like low-income housing. I guess that's technically projects. And he talked about how he had it rough, and yeah, I knew that feeling. He said that where he slept was like his bedroom was a back porch, and his brother's bedroom was an attic of some sort. And yeah, man, that's That's crazy. Like I didn't know because I thought that his dad was in the picture. But I mean, his dad might have been maybe that was a stepfather or something, or he has like a lot of surrogates in his life, like people that help raise him. But he said that his mom was single, they had a couple of kids, and she was making ends meet. So he kind of parlayed that into his attitude and personality on certain things. I can see how that makes you hustle. I can see how, growing up without can make you hustle. Also seeing people struggle. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've seen people struggle throughout my life, and it's made me want to. Of course, anybody wants success, but it's made me want to avoid certain things. You know what I'm saying? Like getting behind on bills and taking out excessive credit, stuff like that. So I can see that part, but how you treat other people, there's no excuse for that.
No.
Like there's none. And he really was landing on thick. Like when you can see that, I'm a certain way towards, people, but when he says people, he means Katina, obviously. That's code for Katina. And so when you see that he's a certain way towards people, it's because he won't let nothing, come get in his. He won't let. What do you say? He won't let nothing like get in his way. He won't take it.
I don't know, and here's why I don't know, because he's full of it. I'll be tuning Isaac all the way out because Isaac is tripping. So, I like reality TV. I watch quite a bit of it. And, that means that, also content is fed to you about reality TV. And, Isaac, aka Olajuwon, is really full of it because some of the things that is common knowledge at this point is you went to college on a scholarship, an athletic scholarship. So when you talk about your student loans, they were probably minimum to begin with because you had a scholarship. The home that you live in was not a home that you went out and purchased. It was inherited from another family member. Wow. And so, you know what I mean?
I didn't know none of this.
So like, sir, you need to stop, as my husband will say, stop capping. Because
that's all cap.
Because I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it.
He typing in all caps right now, bro. Cap lock is on because I'm thinking I just got finished saying I can see how that make you hustle.
Yeah, and listen,
he might got some hustle too,
right?
Like
I'm not trying to dispute that you have some hustle in you. Okay, if you have student loans, then you paid them off. Good for you.
Yeah.
You have a good job. Good for you. I'm happy. I'm proud of you even for doing the things that you have done. What I'm not proud of is the man that you're showing yourself to be, because that person is condescending, as we were talking about. That person treats Katina like she is very much not on his level and less than him. That person is not a good communicator. That person does not know how to express to his wife the things that he wants or needs. He doesn't even know how to express his care and concern for her. He's like, because, if I were her, I would say no on decision day. And he's like tearing up and hiding tears. And I would never tell her that. And like all this, like, what are you doing? What I mean? What is wrong with you? Like, y'all are 1 week out now at this point, and you still, are BSing about y'all going deeper into conversations, and you can't have a real conversation with her. You telling a former coach or whomever, yeah, because my last girlfriend, wanted to go to school and this, and and you see how that turned out. So you're projecting all of that on Katina. You've not had a conversation with her about that. It's like, come on.
Yeah, like that was some BS talking about how he wants what's best for her. And okay, you want what's best for her, I understand that. And you think that what's best for her is that y'all not together and it hurts and you would never tell her that. First of all, I think that's just more narcissistic BS in some way. Cause like you gotta let her figure out what number one was best for her. And number two is I think you're gonna end up doing something really silly. You know what I mean? On decision day.
Yes.
But but yeah, it's amazing how, you know, we on the outside looking in. Obviously, I say this every episode, but we don't know all the conversations that's going on. But it really is amazing how he seems to be more open with everybody else as far as his plans and his goal than with her.
Right.
And his conversations with her are always more so about
what she's not doing,
breaking
how
her
she's not
down,
measuring up.
what she needs to do, and telling her what she wants. Well, that's not a smart plan. Well, you know what I'm saying? Like, how we going to do this and still do that? And I'm actually still taken aback by the fact that you just said, like, so I like this show, but I watched this show because we watched this show together. Like, if it wasn't for that, I'm watching like clips of the show or something like that, or like little instances. So I'm not like a reality TV person. I'm not constantly absorbing it, you know. So, or content related to it, and because of that, I had no idea that Elijah Wan went to school at the athletic scholarship, where, you know, you could probably still incur some student debt, but it's minimal. Might be related to housing and or food and books and stuff like that. I didn't know. I had no idea. So, and then the house, I'm not surprised that the house was inherited, because they showed the house. The house looked like an old person house. Like,
well, I mean, if you just buying a house, you know, I mean, you buy a house where the market is, you know, you get what you get.
Yeah,
you make it look the way you want it to look. But he seemed to be very comfortable with how it looked.
It looked like an old person. Like, I would have thought that he still was like living with his like a parent or grandparent or something like that, because it wasn't really no 30-year-old amenities or touch to it at all. Mm-hmm. And like he had like not one sports poster or nothing up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, he had like old curtains.
Well, him and his brother, I think he said, redid the basement. They painted it for it to be a gym, and remember they showed that. So they did some things.
I remember they did all that they needed to do. It might be like a recent inheritance, so they didn't have time. I get that part. So,
and you know, but here's the thing. So on Katina's side, you know, she called him her future baby daddy, you know, that he makes her feel like a superwoman. I'm like, girl, how? Girl, where?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what we see is him trying to make you feel like less of a woman than you actually are, you know?
But that's more pimp talk. Like, pimps will make... Pimp will sit up there and tell me, like, yeah, me and you, baby, we gonna take over the world. You know, you just gotta listen to me, because you know what I'm saying? Like, you on the wrong train but the right track, baby. Like, they say stuff like that. And and you know, and their workers.
Wait, how you know?
I'm from the streets. Like, you know this about me. I'm from the hood. Just me and Elijah Wan. We both from together. But yeah, like, it is. But that's the kind of stuff that they say. Mind control can always work, no matter what the end goal is.
Right.
What you're trying to get them to do. Mental manipulation happens, and that's what pimps do. And that's what Elijah Wan's doing.
And because he's always, when like they're in front of the experts, he's always talking about how strong she is, you know, that type of stuff. And my thing is, like, she has to be strong in order to deal with you. And I feel like that's even the context that he's talking about, even, you know, the fact that, like, she's not just a puddle of mess on the floor after dealing with all of his mess that he knows that he puts her through. And it's really a shame, because she deserves so much better than that. And I feel like every time they get in front of an expert or in front of others and she's called upon to speak her truth, she's really kind of like looking at him to like figure out like how much she should say, how far she should go with it, how much of her true opinion that she should express. And I feel like that's really an indication that she doesn't feel as safe in the relationship as she's saying that she feels. And even, here's what was funny to me though. So in the episode Hometown Piece, she goes to the church that she was raised in, and that's where they sat and talked. And but they had previously talked about how her mother has, a home and, she was raised differently, blah, blah. Mama was like, I'm not trying to be in these episodes no more than I have to be. Don't bring him here. You know what I mean? Mama's like, nope, don't show my house. Don't come here. Y'all can go to church. That's what you can do. Which, that was funny to me. You know what I mean? I was like, wow, okay. Yeah. And honestly, I don't remember, did they read their letters to their younger selves?
I don't recall.
I don't remember them doing that. And they probably did, and maybe I tuned out. But I don't remember that.
Yeah, I don't recall. I remember everybody else reading their letters except them. Mm-hmm. So maybe I tuned them out too. I don't know.
That would be weird though. Neither one of us remember either one of their letters.
Well, we could check the video later.
Yeah, roll the tape. But I'm curious about that because I don't know how, more vulnerable or open expressive they were with each other. Hopefully, whether we saw it on camera or not, they actually did do the exercise and that helped them, will help them to grow in their relationship with one another. I still don't feel like they should be married though. She needs to run and she needs to run fast.
So moving on to Mark and Lindsay. With the E.
Mm-hmm. Do we have to move on to them?
You got more to say about?
No, I mean to them. I'm just tired of talking about them. Is what it is. That's where it is. It's the same thing every time. I'm done. I'm over it. You're not appreciative. Yeah. I'm done. You have to earn me. You haven't earned me.
I wonder, like,
I'm too much.
If she keeps track of how much she actually says that.
That should literally be a drinking game on this show.
Like,
everybody sloshed.
Yeah. Because she says that a lot, but then she goes right back to it. So a few things. She doesn't like that Mark sets boundaries. And he's not always forceful about the boundaries that he sets. So that when he's not forceful about the boundaries that he sets, she feels like that is a green light for her to keep going. And then when he finally puts his foot down, it's like, oh, you're the worst person in the world.
Right, like he can't win.
You didn't just tell me 5 or 6 times to stop. Right. Like that didn't happen. So essentially you're the worst person. Now you're cut off. You're done. You're out. I'm in. Doors locked. Throwing away the key.
Except for there's the key right there. Pick it up and bring it back here, and I lock the door.
So and that's like her whole. That's like her mood swings. A wide range. She has a pretty much a wide stride, a wide pendulum. It's very chaotic, and
it goes from maniacal laughter to menacing cut downs.
And the irony is, she's like last week we talked about it extensively. She never smells her own funk. Mm-mm. Because she literally will earmark out, and it's like that's okay. Like putting his personal business out there, that's okay.
Whether
demeaning him and his sexual prowess, like that's okay. It's okay to embarrass Mark,
right?
But it's not okay to tell Lindsay no.
Right.
This is a very spoiled woman.
I feel like one of Lindsay's, biggest battle cries is that Mark is always telling her that she's too much and that she's not going to shrink herself or become less than for him. And apparently this is not a new thing for Lindsay. I do remember in the very beginning when we first met her that, this was a common, theme in her life, that people have felt like she was too much.
Remember she put that in her letter.
Yes. But in her letter was all digs at Mark. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
The whole thing was all digs at Mark.
And that's okay. It's okay. Cut
it was
Mark down.
Like I'm just gonna go back in my DeLorean and tell my younger self, don't deal with Mark's bull
He's a
because,
poo-poo head.
and because, like she said last episode, I think you just don't like when I'm standing in my power and you try to cut me down. Like literally, that's what she said to him when he said that she was hyper. I was like, yo, that's what you got out of that. Like you are standing in your power right now and he's trying to cut you down. Okay. So, so you have her traveling back in time in her DeLorean, sharing with her younger self all of the things that she will say to Mark right now in the present moment, because apparently this time travel has already happened and it's just an infinity loop. And so we're hearing her say and do the things that she told her younger self to say and do, because that's just what needs to happen, because Mark is terrible apparently. But what I think is one of the other dynamics that's really happening is, like, we talk about love languages, right? And Lindsay's outward love language is like acts of service. Like she wants to do things for people. But I don't feel like it's from the motivation of sharing love for people. I think it's from the motivation of getting gratitude from people. You know what I mean? Like, I'm doing this not because I love you and this is the way I show it. I'm doing this so that you will be indebted to me. You know what I mean? And we even saw a weird glimpse of this past episode. Very weird. They're at the vet. Mark is dealing with, the sickness of his cat, JC, who has been with him, through all of his major life events.
I think he had a cat for like 12 years.
Something like that. Very, a very sad moment for him. And I'm sure a sad moment for Lindsay too, because she's, come to know this cat. They've been together for the last 7 weeks. I'm sure she wasn't cold about it, and she's a cat person. It did make me flash back to their wedding when she talked about his cats are old, they're gonna die. I was like, wow, though, okay, that was prophetic. Or did you do something to this cat? But here's the weird thing that I saw. They're at the vet's office. She's doing, I'm assuming that she's holding a cam. I'm assuming that, production wasn't in there, with their cameras. So it looked like Lindsay is holding the cam. She and Mark are holding the cat. She's kind of like holding them both with the cam. And she turns towards the cam and smiles. And it was just like the most, honestly, it was creepy to me.
I didn't see that.
It was very creepy to me, and it was almost like, I got you right where I want you. You know what I mean? I'm being here for you. See me being here for you? You're gonna appreciate me now. You know what I'm like? That's how it came across to me. Like, why would you smile in that situation, other than the fact that you get something that you want, which is his being indebted to you in some way. And like, she kept hugging him and he would just kind of like let her, like, he didn't hug back or anything, it was just like, all of this is just super uncomfortable and weird.
Yeah, it's cringy.
Yeah.
And Mark, I could tell Mark is checked out. I think he's probably still being nice, but he knows it's not going to last. She knows it's not going to last. That she's basically all but said it herself. Mark might not be the guy for her, etc. So
he even said when they were talking with Dr. Pepper, I know how to love somebody. I know what you need. You want to be, appreciated. You want to be told this. You want to be told that you're he's like literally saying all of the things that he knows that she wants. He's like, you just have to like give me some leeway to get there. And what I was hearing in that is, I know exactly what you want, but I'm not going to give it to you because I don't like you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need time to learn it. I don't need room to come towards you. I would have done that already. I don't want to give it to you because I'm not into you. You know what I mean? Like, that's how those things work. Because when you're into somebody, you do the things that you know they want done just because you know they want it. And because you're compelled to do it. You don't withhold it and say, but I need room to come forward and give it to you. You already know what it is. You know what I'm saying? So clearly he's withholding that because he just doesn't want to. You know, and that's okay too, Mark. But I feel like that's the part where he needs to stop, like, trying to play the good guy and, like, save face and, like, say what he thinks too. If she's super comfortable saying, you know, maybe this is not the guy for me, this is not what I want, I don't want to be lesser, I don't want to be felt like I'm too much, blah, blah, blah. He can also say, but this personality, the way you respond to me is not what I like. This is not going to work for me.
Yeah.
And last note on them, when, you know, they went to Mark's hometown, Lindsay's hometown was the woods. But remember they went traveling through the path and then she wanted them to go under the brush? That was her hometown. Because when she was in her household, she felt the need to escape, and she would escape to the woods. So that's where she took him. He took her outside of his childhood home, but then shared something I felt was very interesting and dysfunctional, saying that he would like to find a way to get that house and to live there again. But when he talked with Pastor Cal about the relationship between his mother and his father, and even when he talked about in this episode about his father sitting on the, in the driveway and his mother yelling out the window at him, why would you want to be reminded of that every day? You know, so in Mark's scenario, it is dysfunction, and he wants to live in that scenario with his wife. You know what I mean? Like you're going to start your own marriage in the place that you said was dysfunctional for the two married people that raised you. You know what I mean? Like, that's the part
also,
I'm like,
it just might be a whole lot of nostalgia, you know, for what you...
I'm sure there's some. And, you know, he was saying that, you know, his father passed away 2 years ago and that they lived there up until that point. And when they say they, I'm like, did Mark live there too up until that point? Like, that's the way it sounded. Yeah. And I'm like, but Mark, you like a whole 37 or something years old.
You know.
So,
I mean,
definitely what he's used to.
Yeah, but, I can still kind of understand it, but we running long, so.
Well, we're done now anyway.
Okay.
So anyway, y'all, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for sticking with us. We would love for you to like our channel, like this video, subscribe to our channel, and get in the comments. Let us know what you think of what we have to say and anything that we may have missed that you would love to discuss. We will talk back with you during the week. Talk to you soon. See you next week. Bye.